Hey, I'm Summer.
And I'm Mike.
And we got married.
With children.
We're married 2 years now.
Blended for 11.
Like a margarita.
Yeah, baby, like a margarita.
And you're listening to the Everything Always podcast.
Want to tell them why we do this?
We do this because blending families isn't easy. There's step-parenting, co-parenting, his ex,
Her ex.
schedules, sibling rivalry,
Money issues.
custody issues.
Dating and relationship issues.
It's a whole lot of stuff.
Blended with a whole lot of good stuff.
And we're here to talk about all of it because we've done most of it.
We might not be experts, but we've learned a lot.
And we're still learning, and we want to share that with you.
Thanks for joining. Now let's go.
Some of the most difficult blended family moments surface from clashing parenting styles. And I'm not talking about his ex or your ex or her ex. I mean with your own partner. Hey guys, it's Summer here, and I'm coming at you today with another hot topic: what to do when you and your partner clash on parenting styles. Mike and I have done a fair amount of episodes talking about how you can eliminate a lot of arguing and tension if you're both on the same page, which is ideal. But let's face it, sometimes you just won't be. And when it comes to parenting styles, some parents are more lax, while some don't skip a beat when a rule is broken. And you better believe that their child will experience a consequence when they do something that's wrong. And some parents are in between. It's kind of like, let it go this time. But when you come together as a couple, what your partner did before can be something that you just don't agree with. And same for you. What you did before might be something that your partner's like, wouldn't do it that way. And it can cause some tension. I would say that Mike and I were kind of similar and kind of different when it came to parenting styles. What he was more strict on, I was lax on, and what I was more strict on, he was lax on. And he would tell me early on why it was important to be strict on certain behaviors. And I would agree, and then I would tell him the same thing with things that were important to me. So, like, for example, for Mike, attitude and showing respect is huge. Like negative attitude or being a jerk, he's like, you're not getting away with that. And for me, responsibilities were huge. Like, what are you guys going to take care of and be responsible for and clean up after yourself? Those type of things. So we then came together under the same roof, and here's what we would notice. So he would not let attitude or behavioral issues slide, like temper tantrums and things like that. But he would get frustrated with me if I did let it slide, or I just wasn't hard enough on the kids or didn't take action on it. And it was with any of the kids. So it was interesting because he'd get frustrated with me if I let his kids get away with it. They're all our kids, but I'm saying for the sake of his bio kids, he would, get upset that I didn't address it or I wasn't hard enough on it. And he would say that, it's so important that you do that. And I would agree on it being important. And then I would do the same thing with him. So it was kind of a frustrating thing. Like, I want you to take care of this with my kids and your kids. And he would want me to do the same, but it was hard. So I hated it when, if something happened and I had to discipline his kids. And we've done episodes on this before. I felt like it was his job, not mine, to reinforce it. And I think that as we've talked about on previous episodes, it helped with the kids, especially in those early years. So the agreement we came to was that he would enforce the rules with his kids and I would enforce the rules with mine and dish out the consequences, especially when we were first blending, so as not to put off the kids, like, hey, who are you? You're not my real mom. You're not my real dad to tell me what to do. So we, took on that role of, well, we're going to act more as a guide, or much like a babysitter would. Like, these are the rules that your parent has taught me. And when they're not around, I'm going to make sure that those happen. But then if there's a consequence that needs to be dished out, your biological parent is going to make sure that that's enforced. So if a non-bio kid of ours would do something that was not acceptable, We would address it. And then when dad or mom came home, we would talk about it and, okay, here's what we're going to do moving forward. But this is also the place where disagreements would happen because sometimes one parent wouldn't enforce the rules that were important to us. So here's an example. I was always a proponent of responsibility since always. That was my parenting style, meaning that you clean up after yourself, you help when you are asked, you do your homework, whatever those things are that you are old enough to do, you need to do them when you are asked to do them. And it was something that I enforced on the regular. You make your bed every day, you clean up your room. As soon as you're old enough to do laundry, you do your own laundry. You clean up after yourself, you do the dishes. If I didn't do that with all of the kids, if I wasn't like pushing it, Mike would probably let that go until he saw piles of clothes and messes spilling out from the bedrooms or a sink full of dirty dishes, because he actually really hates mess. It's a good thing he married me because I love to be super clean, but he hates mess, but he also isn't the person that's going to enforce them to do it. He'll tell them to do that, but then he'll kind of let it go and get busy with other things. But if it was an attitude issue, if it was, you're being mean to your sister, he was on it. Like, you are not going to have that bad attitude with me, with your stepmom, with your sister, whatever it was not happening. So if we asked the kids, if we came to an agreement like, okay, kids, when we ask you to clean your room, you have to clean your room, or you just do this on the daily, but they didn't do it, and then he didn't reinforce it, I would get frustrated because I wanted him to reinforce it with his kids. It was easy for me to do it with my own bio kids because it was like, hey, I don't care if you get mad at me. That's fine. But I really cared if his kids got mad at me because I'm trying to develop a relationship with them. I'm trying to get them, to develop trust and love and all of that stuff that takes a long time. And it would upset me though. At the same time, I was like, but it also doesn't mean that they just get to be messy. So what it also did was create more work for me. So now I'm having to do more work and more cleanup that they were fully capable of doing. And more so, I would feel like it's setting us up for failure in parenting. And it definitely would set the kids up for failure in terms of being responsible, capable human beings. So in my mind, this wasn't doing anybody any favors if we weren't, sticking to these rules. So the hard part was that when we would have these disagreements or I would get upset and frustrated, it would put a divide between the two of us, between Mike and I. And then it would become this cycle of one of us getting upset and the other not following through when we both had an agreed discipline plan. Now, and again, we would each follow through on the rules that were important to us, but we weren't following through on the rules that were important to the other person. And this isn't really about what rules you should have in place, by the way. I'm just giving you examples, but it's about, I want to talk about what to do when you clash, when you have these disagreements, or when you find yourself in this cycle of, okay, I agree with you, and I'll get on the kids to make them do their chores, and then you don't follow through, or one parent doesn't follow through. It doesn't even matter, like, how good of a case you have. Like, it didn't matter how good of a case I had for my rules and why they were important, or why my parenting style I think was great, or why you need to have such strong follow through. It didn't matter if I had all of these great points. What mattered was, how do we both handle this, because we're doing things differently and we don't know that we're going to start to do it the way I want you to or the way you want me to. And whether you're new to dating someone with kids, or you're new to being under the same roof, or you have all been together for a while, that you quickly realize if you have an opposing style, and you will feel that tension. And that tension is all the more reason to get this parenting stuff under control as soon as you can. And what you don't want to happen is a pattern of conflict, because conflict leads to disconnect, especially when it's unresolved, especially when you're holding grudges. And the kids will feel this. Anyone who's in your household is going to feel this. And this was always super important to us, making sure that we stayed connected, because it's inevitable that you're going to disagree on things. And Mike is really, really good at calling out if he feels that we are disconnected. He doesn't let it go. I mean, if he feels that way for like 30 minutes or an hour, he's like, we need to talk about this. And it's awesome. He's adamant about that, which is great because I'm probably more passive and like, I'm just going to like hold it in for a while. But we know that if we are connected and have that foundation of working together and being a team and keeping ourselves and our relationship a priority, then we can get through all of these conflicts. So we have to look at each other and say, okay, when you feel this way, who's going to be the one that says something? You know, you make these rules in a place that we said this on our last podcast, but you come up with this agreement and these rules when you're in a really good place with each other, and so that you can come back to them. And one of ours was Mike's gonna, take charge and say, hey, we're disconnected. What are we gonna do about it? Because it's likely that the way I process, I might not do that. And I'm still working on it. But hey, if you're already there and you're mature enough to do that, then let's rely on you for that. So the purpose of today's episode is that I want to give you some takeaways that can help you if you do feel that you're experiencing this clash of parenting styles, or you find yourself coming up with this tension and conflict. Because, here's the real deal. You and your partner will most likely see parenting and step parenting differently. And that's totally okay. Even if you're in agreement on a lot of things, it's just going to be different because they were parenting with somebody else likely before, or even if they were on their own, they were doing things their own way. And you're two different people that are coming together. And my guess, though, is that you both really have good intentions. But regardless of those differences, you still need to develop a parental partnership where you minimize that tension in the household and you keep the focus on what is the best outcome for our family and our kids. Hey guys, guess what? We have a new website where you can see all of our podcasts and get easy access to the show notes, everything we talk about on the episodes, and you can even listen to the podcast directly from the site. You can contact us through the site and share your thoughts and questions. Check it out at www.everythingalways.co. That's www.everythingalways.co.
And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Everything Always Co. We just set it up and we'll be sure to put important announcements there.
And we love that this podcast has been so helpful to so many, and our hope is to share it with even more. So can you help us? Will you take a moment now or after the episode to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, and share it? It would mean the world to us, and it helps us to keep bringing you the best content.
Come on, we appreciate you guys. So what do you say, baby? Back to the episode?
Back to the episode. So here are just a few things that we learned to do and have been really, really helpful. And I hope that they're super helpful for you, especially if implemented. The first is focus on the strengths. It's so easy to look at all of the negative things and the weaknesses of one another, how you would do it better than she would, he would do it better. You can go on a tangent with all of that kind of stuff, and that just feeds your ego wonderfully, doesn't it? But what you're not doing, what you should be doing, what he should be doing, why you're right, why he's wrong, all of that kind of thinking sets you up for more conflict. It's inviting the conflict. So instead of doing that, what if you looked at each other's strengths and what you do like about what the other person does? Like, I'm really good at setting up reward plans when the kids are consistent with their responsibilities. And I'm good at having compassion and seeing their side in a situation when they do act out and kind of bringing it down and having some empathy there. Mike is really good at being stern and not getting emotional about it. I'll probably get really upset if somebody breaks a rule, and he's really good at seeing things at a 30,000 foot high level view and understanding that, yes, the kids are going to be really uncomfortable about the consequences I'm about to dish out, but he looks into the future and sees that this is going to be a life lesson that serves them really well in the future. So looking at what in each other, what those strengths are, and also looking at yourself and saying, hey, I know I'm pretty strong in these areas. And he and I are aware of where we could improve and where we can learn with each situation, but we work to stay in the mindset of focusing on what we each bring to the table and how our strengths can complement each other instead of opposing each other. And just this type of thinking and just being in this mindset will automatically lead you to a stronger connection and definitely more respect for one another as well. And when you have respect for one another, it is just a beautiful thing when it comes to working together. As you know, this is just a lesson in everyday life. When you don't have respect for the other person, you're just going to focus on those negative things. So remember the love you have for each other. Remember the respect you have for one another. Why it is that you fell in love with each other. There's so many strengths, and what are those things that you can focus on that actually help complement each other when it comes to parenting. Number 2, find the common ground. So just being willing to negotiate feels better. Like if you're dead set on your way being the only way and that is the right way, I don't care what anybody else says, it is increasingly hard to get anywhere and find any resolution because there's no invitation to communicate. It's just my way or the highway. And we've all been in that type of situation, and it's like, why even bother? There has to be compromise in just about anything in life. So why wouldn't you have that here? And if you handle these situations with the intention of finding that common ground, you will see that the tension starts to just melt off. It lightens up right away. You just kind of like, you feel the release in your chest and in your shoulders. It's like, okay, I'm open now because we can now come to a resolution. If you just have that wall up, it's tension. I mean, it is like the definition of tension. And it's just so worth it to look at it in a way of how can we both benefit from this. If you look at any agreement that has to be fair, any fair agreement, each person has to feel like they won something and each person feels like they gave up something, and that's okay because that's fair. So one tip in doing this is really defining the one thing that is important to you. So when you do negotiate something, you know that you have your must-haves, and you know that there are things that are just so important to you that you are going to hold strong on, but you're also going to be open in terms of letting go the small things. So always ask yourself, is it worth it to keep pressing, or is this something that I can let go? If it's something that you feel is really important, fight for that. At the same time, let go of the little things, like maybe the bed doesn't have to be made every single day if that's something that was important to you. Or if it's something that you're like, no, I think this is a practice that's going to set them up for success and I really want you to be on board with me, then fight for that. But then maybe you can let go the laundry issue or leaving the dishes in the sink for too long, whatever that is for you. Maybe all those things are super important, but I think you get where I'm going. Let go of the small things that you're like, you know what? It's not so worth it to me to fight for this, but it is worth it to me to fight for this rule. And finally, number 3, explore a parenting style that you two believe will work best for your family. And I'm going to actually review those in the next episode because there are some really interesting parenting styles, especially when it comes to step parenting and blended families and what people tend to lean towards. And I did some research on this and I thought it was really interesting and I want to share this with you, but I didn't want to block it all into one episode. I wanted to first just get you set with the mindsets, like really simple mindsets of going into this, because this is probably something that is the cause of many disagreements when it comes to blended families. Even just in dating and your kids hanging out together, this stuff can happen. But just remember that in order to be successful at anything, you need some type of framework and you need a strategy and tools that work. And that goes for anything in life, but especially for parenting in blended families. It's so easy. I know this. I so get this. You can get so overwhelmed by the challenges and you can feel so super pumped one day, like we're on the same team, we're going to rock this, I'm fully committed. And the next day you can feel totally defeated by one incident, by one kid doing something and your partner not supporting you on it. I totally get that. That happens. We have been there multiple times. It still happens. I mean, seriously, we have teens, for crying out loud, like literally crying out loud. I'm crying out loud. Like it's hard. So these challenges come up and you're faced with new rules, especially at the different ages. So I totally get the overwhelm that comes with this. And that's why I really firmly believe that these mindsets are so important, because you set that groundwork, you set the framework for where you're going to operate from, instead of operating from a place of tension. And I hope that makes sense. It's a feeling thing. It's a gut thing. You know, like anything good in life, when you love so hard and you feel it so deep in your bones, you know what the possibilities are of feeling connected in a family, feeling harmonious and having all of those moments, and you want more of those. And when you're committed to that and you have this mindset of no matter what, we're going to stay connected and we're going to work together on this, even when we disagree, and we're going to look to each other's strengths and the reasons that we came together in the first place. Like, you just persevere and do the things that need to be done to have more and more of those connected and harmonious moments, to the point where you're like, oh, those challenging moments happen, but not as often as they did. It's not a daily thing. It's not even a weekly thing. It's something that happens and we're so equipped to deal with it. I hope that was helpful. This was a brief, but I think super mighty episode. And I think it complements our previous episode and talking about arguing. So I hope that all these things, come together and really provide like go-to tools and things to think about when you're faced with that situation, when you can have that pause and say, oh, you know what I'm going to do? Okay, I'm starting to get heated up. I'm starting to get emotional here. I'm not going to focus on the negative. I'm going to force myself into looking at the strengths that we each have. And we're going to sit down and have a conversation about this. And we're going to compliment each other on those strengths. And boom, you've just lightened up the situation. And also to remember, just remember, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, being imperfect and knowing that it's okay to be imperfect will actually accelerate your progress. If you're looking to be perfect, you're probably going to stall where you guys can actually bring the connection and the harmony in your family. So please don't focus on being perfect. Focus on the strengths. Know that it is okay to be imperfect. It actually helps you with your progress. We so got you. We are so here for you, and we completely support you. And thank you guys again for listening. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. Our goal is to bring you all kinds of value that will help you navigate these challenging waters of blending a family.
Reach out to us if there's something specific you want to hear.
And don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.
And if you really like it, share with someone you love.
Ooh, and be bold enough to share it with someone you don't.